Here we go, Will. It's time for our position breakdowns 2.0, buddy. Let's talk about it. First pitch is next. What's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 59 of Bringing the Heat. My name's Cody Pite, and with me, as always, the four-seam fastball co-host, Will Sism. Brother, we're back. It's been 12 days. I miss you. How are you doing?
Doing good, man. I think the Thanksgiving turkey is just now wearing off a little bit.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, I think Santa's coming a little early. It's off-season breakdown time.
Woo.
Dude, I cannot wait. I've been looking forward to these episodes coming up, and man, this is going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be awesome, dude. We were kind of chatting about it, getting our list in order before we hit record. This is the first time in a month or two that we've looked at fantasy baseball kind of through that lens. Obviously, fantasy season ends a couple weeks before the regular season does, and then we go straight playoff mode, which was a ton of fun. And, that was a great time. But now it's time to get back. We're going to kind of start where we started last offseason in looking at the catchers. But before we do that, I would be remiss if we didn't mention some of these signings, okay? Because we went in. Like I said, it's been 12 days. It's officially December 1st. We went in on the Cardinals, right? I mean, they made one heck of a signing with Lance Lynn, 1 year, $10 million. And I think we said, if that's it, it's a tough look. Well, spoiler alert, that was not it. They made a signing a couple of days later. Kyle Gibson signed a 1 year deal with an option for 2025. And then our main man, Sonny Gray. This was obviously one of the big fish. And he is off the board. 3 years, $75 million. He was the runner-up in the Cy Young last year. For St. Louis, a team that needed to revamp their rotation. How do you feel about this?
You know what? That's kind of the team that I thought was a really, really good fit for Sonny Gray. I think it's a great signing, both for Sonny Gray and for the Cardinals. Obviously, we've talked. We've exhausted the Cardinals and their need for pitching. And you know what? They were aggressive. They went out and got probably one of their main targets in the offseason in Sonny Gray. So I think it's a great move for the Cardinals for sure. They've got a bona fide number one now. And let's see what else they do. I get the feeling that they might not be done.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, they're off to a really good start, especially getting a guy like Sonny Gray. I think it's a really good fit for both him and the team.
Yeah, I like it. I hear that he's just an absolute great clubhouse presence, and so that's obviously good. Kind of to get back to where St. Louis seems to always land, which is this really great organization. And then 2023 happened, and it was like, what is this? They turned into the Oakland A's or something. It was odd. So yeah, that'll be good. I think holistically looking at the three pitchers, it kind of gets like a meh, like, I don't know. You look at their whole rotation. Their youngest guy is 33 years old, Steven Matz. So I saw a picture. Someone said the Cardinals rotation, and it was a picture of the Expendables 3 with like, Sylvester Stallone, all those guys. So that was pretty funny. We'll see what happens. That is a weak division. We've talked about that a ton. So it's definitely up for grabs. Hey, from one weak division to the other, let's talk about the AL Central.
Uh-huh.
And the Tigers made a move, man. 2 years, $24 million to Kenta Maeda. All this talk about our man Yamamoto coming over. This is a guy who's been in the league for 6 or 7 years, started with the Dodgers. Now he's going to the Tigers from the Twins, so staying in the division. Pretty nasty, was hurt some last year. Does this get you excited at all?
I mean, it's obviously not Ohtani, right? But it's, I think it's definitely potentially a good step in the right direction for the Tigers. Obviously, it's a very winnable division. And you know what? Maeda, when he's healthy, he's a really good pitcher, solid strikeout ratios. And his main thing is health. And so if he can put a full season together and he's fully healthy, I think he can definitely be a guy that's, I don't think you necessarily build a rotation around him, but if he's your number 2 or number 3, hey, you've probably got a pretty decent rotation. And, in that division, the Tigers get maybe a couple other guys that are impact guys this offseason. Hey, they got a legit shot of winning the AL Central for sure.
Yeah, especially with the Twins losing a couple guys.
Yeah.
One of them we'll talk about in a second. Just talked about Gray. We'll talk about another one. Let's move on, though. Luis Severino to the Mets on a 1-year, $13 million deal. You always hear there's no bad 1-year deal. So that could be good. And then they also added the utility infielder Joey Wendell, who he was a Ray, right? Did I imagine that?
Former Ray.
Former Ray. So we'll see what happens. He's obviously pretty solid with the glove and can put a big league at bat together. For the Mets, a team that have publicly said we're not competing in 2024, and there's been some stuff saying they're out on Ohtani, which is odd with the richest owner in Major League Baseball. What's this do for you? Move the needle at all?
I mean, I don't know. I think the Severino deal, I think it makes a lot of sense. That's honestly kind of what I expected Severino to do after just the atrocity of a season that he had last year.
Yeah.
See if he can bet on himself, sign a 1-year deal with a club that's obviously that has a need for starting pitching. The Mets do, since they lost Verlander and Scherzer in the trades last year. And so let's just see if Severino is able to kind of find himself again, So I definitely like the deal for Severino. For the Mets, it definitely fills a hole. At least begins to fill a hole left by Scherzer and Verlander. And we'll see what happens. I mean, as far as it moving the needle, at this point, I don't think they're anywhere in the hemisphere of the Phillies and Braves in that division yet. So we'll see what happens the rest of the offseason. But, kind of what you said, it does feel like 2024 is kind of like almost like a transition year for the Mets. All sights set to 2025 and beyond. As much as you don't want to hear that, probably if you're a Mets fan, it's probably reality.
Yeah, it's just weird what they did last off season versus. I mean, I don't know. It's like they're overcorrecting because obviously they threw a ton of money at big name guys last year. So it's going to be interesting. But I'm with you. You forget that that's in a division where they're essentially battling for third place. I mean, it's just,
right now.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be fun. Hey, two more bullet points, guys. Then we're going to move on to catcher breakdowns. First, I'm already on first base, man. Paul Goldschmidt, Freddie Freeman. I want to talk about, Matt Olson. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Not before catchers. We gotta hit the appetizer first, team. Emilio Pagan and Nick Martinez signed a couple of 2-year deals with the Reds.
You know what? I wish they would have done this last year at the trade deadline.
Yeah, no kidding.
But I guess better late than never. The Reds. I mean, that's the thing. Like the Reds, they just need pitching, both in the bullpen and I think they need starting pitching to help kind of just the depth of the rotation to go along with their young guns and Hunter Green and Lodolo. But I definitely don't mind the moves. I know Pagan's been very up and down ever since he left Tampa Bay. And then Martinez. He's useful. He had for the most part, he was pretty good with San Diego the last year or two. I definitely like the moves, but if I'm a Reds fan, I need to see more of it. I need more pitching. Because here's the thing. Cardinals are already making a move, so the Cardinals are going to be much better, I think. The Cubs, I think, are going to be much better. I think they're going to sign some people in the free agency market.
Yeah.
Obviously we've talked about the Brewers. They're going to probably take a big step back, but I feel like everybody but the Brewers in that division is going to continue to get better. So the Reds need to make sure that they're on top of things and continuing to improve that roster around all those young core players.
Yep, I love it, man. We saw in the middle of last year how much fun it was when the Great American Ballpark is packed, and it was for the first time. It feels like in a really long time. So I'm with you. Let's see what they do. This is a heavy NL Central segment, I guess, kind of by accident, but they're just the hot stove is cooking in the Central on the National League side. Jackson Chourio. All right. It's part of a complete breakfast. And he has set the record. I really thought that was going to get a laugh out of you. There it is.
Good.
Yeah. Thank you, Will.
It took me a second.
I appreciate it. He's like, what is he talking about? Did we get a sponsor? What? Okay. So he set the record for the highest salary deal for a player who has not made their major league debut. And how about 8 years, $82 million with the Brewers? He's their top prospect. He's the number 2 prospect in baseball. He's 19 years old. He is expected, since signing this deal, he'll break the club as their center fielder at age 20. So that's super exciting. And apparently with some club options and incentives, it could actually push the deal to 10 years, $140 million. So just great for a kid who has set himself up financially to, I mean, that's got to be like a total gift for his family. And that's totally awesome. All that hard work really paying off. Hey, you talked about the Brewers taking a step back. Once they take a step forward again, this kid is going to be involved. Am I right?
I mean, according to the prospect rankings, absolutely. I mean, this guy, if you're a Brewers fan, you better hope that this guy is, everything and more, as far as his prospect pedigree goes. So, we'll obviously get to see it for ourselves. It looks like this year, which is exciting. There's a lot of pressure though that, for a kid that hadn't even stepped foot in a major league stadium yet, and he's already getting 80 something million dollars over, what did you say, 8 years? There's pressure that goes along with that. Guys want to live up to those contracts and stuff, but you know what? If you're a smaller market franchise like the Brewers, obviously I'm a big Rays fan, so you pretty much have to do these things. And if you're a smaller market team, or else you're going to lose these guys after 5-6 years to free agency, because you're just not going to be able to pay them if they end up performing like we maybe expect them to. So
correct.
So I mean, I definitely don't mind the moves if you're a Brewers, if you're the Brewers franchise, but I do think it puts a little bit of pressure on a guy, especially not even making his major league debut yet. Because, I mean, let's face it, Corbin Carroll, Julio Rodriguez does not do guys like Chiriot many favors,
Yeah.
Because Brewers fans are going to expect this guy to be a stud pretty much right off the bat, right? Yeah. And so we'll see what happens. I'm excited to see him. But yeah, we'll have to see how it plays out. But exciting at least if you're a Brewers fan. I don't expect that team to look
it just
like it has the last few years, but hey, at least it's exciting getting a guy like this to the majors.
It leaves a sour taste in your mouth with the fact that they've lost Woodruff, they're going to lose Burns, and they have this awesome. I was just thinking about the rest of their young core in Garrett Mitchell and Sal Frelick, who shout out to the Nashville Sounds. We watched him. I think he went like 4 for 5. I mean, he's just a man amongst boys. Little guy. He's a little short, but he gets the job done. And it's just kind of sad. You got this young core. They could come up of age, and we've been waiting. We're like, hey, Brewers, go get bats. Well, now, and poor Devin Williams, man, we could do a whole show just singing our sorrows about the Brewers. We'll see what happens in that weak division that we have well documented. We've also documented this episode here, number 59, that everybody in the division's going out to do stuff. So, I'm going to have to move on because I'm getting heated and, it's bringing the heat. You don't want to bring it too early, though, because then you'll cook the outside of your stuff and you don't get the inside. We're looking for a nice, even cook. So we're moving on to our first position breakdown of 2023. It's December 1st. We're looking at the catcher position, and, man, this was a lot of fun. For anybody who hasn't listened to our episodes in the last offseason, we kind of break it down. Obviously, you have a ranking of players. This case, we got our catchers, and we have 4 different categories. We have our blue chips, which, of course, if anybody's familiar with drafting, those are the cream of the crop, the absolute premium players. We have our steady eddies. Will just pitched that to me before the episode. I loved it so much. So our set it and forget it, or security blankets, we're changing the name. It's steady eddies. Those are the guys that you just put in the lineup. You know what you're going to get. It's great. It's unstressful fantasy baseball, and that's what we're here to promote. That's our 4th pillar. If you've been listening, we've been putting pillars together here, baby. Our third category, we got our question marks. These are guys who may be able to help you in a category or two, but we're kind of uncertain about some things, and there is some room for, hey, these guys are going to be really good, or, they could Alejandro Kirk it. We're going to get into it. And then our last segment is our lottery ticket segment. We've had some pretty interesting lottery tickets from last year, right? I mean, I think we had Corbin Carroll in the lottery ticket. A lot of
Josh
prospects.
Young.
Josh Young. So you guys, stick around to the end. We're gonna do a little outlook, and then we'll talk about risers and fallers, who's gotten better, and obviously who's gotten worse. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Will, let's dive in, man, because we have a new number one dog at the top of the board. Our first blue chip. We have 3 for the catchers. Adley Rutschman. What gets you excited about this 25-year-old?
Everything.
I knew it. I knew he was gonna say everything.
You know what? I'll be perfectly honest. I know all of our listeners out there that they know my love for Adley, but I will be totally honest. I was doing everything I possibly could to justify not putting him number one.
Yeah,
but I couldn't do it
Nope.
because I wanted to put Will Smith number one, but I saw the last couple of months, and he actually really. I don't know if some people really noticed this, but the last month or two of his season was not great. It was almost like he wore down. So, anyways, I wanted to put Will Smith at number one.
Yeah.
But I had to go Adley. Adley is just, and I've said this before, I think Adley Rutschman's an even better real life player than he even is fantasy player.
For sure.
But he's pretty dang good at fantasy too. I mean, I just feel like the floor that you're going to get with Adley Rutschman is way better than anybody else's floor at this point at the catcher position. He's a switch hitter. He's going to, as long as he's healthy, he's pretty much going to be in the lineup every day. Baltimore is going to DH him quite a bit just so that he stays in the lineup. The average is going to be there. I mean, he hit last year, he hit 277. I think that could actually improve a decent amount. Should he put it all together this year? He had 20 home runs, which is really good out of this position. And he's going to be hitting probably first or second in that lineup pretty much every day. So being able to score runs, drive in RBIs in a really good lineup in Baltimore, what is there really not to like? He's 25, so he's only now entering his prime. The only thing he's not going to do is steal bases, but
one catcher does that. Essentially,
yes,
there's
one catcher at this point does that. So yeah, I mean, basically to sum it up, I think Adley has by far the highest floor of any of these catchers that we're going to talk about. And he still has the upside, probably as high or higher than anybody. And so mainly for that reason is why I've got him at number one.
Yeah. Well, he's a 4-category contributor. I love everything you said, the 20 home runs, the 80 RBIs. This is a guy, he has 92, let's see here, I had it pulled up, 92 walks, 101 strikeouts, so nearly a 1-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio. I know that stirs your drink. What about 809 OPS? I mean, this guy, he just does it, and we talked about it last year in the offseason episode when kind of our draft tips. Draft players you love to watch, and so I think it's very fitting that we start this off with him. Our second blue chip, and you already mentioned him, Will Smith, 28-year-old stud for the Dodgers. He's been doing it. Hits that little lean back in his, Claire knows what I'm talking about. We've watched some Dodgers games. Really solid year last year. 261 average, 19 home runs, 76 RBIs, scored 80 runs, stole 3 bags. So that offense is going to do it. What gets you excited about Will Smith?
Yeah, I like Will Smith a lot. Like I said, I did everything I could to see if I could put him number one this year, and I couldn't quite do it. But I think this is the one guy though that you can make a very strong, legitimate argument to where if you want to put him number one over Rutschman, I'm not really going to fight you too hard on it. He's going to hit third or fourth in that Dodgers lineup right behind Mookie and Freddie. Mm-hmm. So the opportunity is going to be there to drive in a ton of runs. I actually think his stat line last year is very close to his floor at this point. I wouldn't be surprised if he has a monster year this year. And let's not forget, as of this recording, that the Dodgers seem to be the prohibitive favorite to also add Ohtani in that lineup. And so,
True.
all of those factors really, I think, could help add even
Mm-hmm.
more protection in that lineup for him.
Yeah.
And don't be surprised if he has a monster year next year. I think it's really kind of a 1A, 1B
Yep.
Adley, Will Smith type deal at the top of the catcher rankings.
Yeah.
Um, so, yeah, I really, really like Will Smith as well.
I think what you're going to see in your drafts, I was going to originally say, hey, just, you let whoever wants to drive the catcher train, go ahead and
Mm-hmm.
take them, and then you get whoever he didn't take. But
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they'll go pretty close together. We've
Yes.
talked about it before, like, oops, there's that, first catcher off the board. I better get a catcher kind of moment a lot of times in drafts. And so I bet they'll be sandwiched close together. Both young guys, obviously, Dynasty League, you love. I mean, they're both playing for, perennial 100 win teams, it
Yep.
feels like. And yeah, dude, their numbers are pretty similar. It's just like, what flavor of ice cream are you interested in? Our last blue chip, JT Realmuto, kind of the incumbent. I think he was number one last year. Had
Mm-hmm.
what felt like an underwhelming year, a 252 average, 20 home runs, 63 RBIs. He scored 70 runs in the Phillies lineup, and he stole 16 bases. That's 10 more than, anybody else on this list. I know you love him. What do you like about him?
I do, man. I mean, you just talk about a guy that just year in and year out kind of flies under the radar a lot of times because especially playing for the Phillies and how
Yeah.
loaded that team is with stars,
Yeah.
But man, JT just produces and from a fantasy standpoint, you alluded to it, those stolen bases, he's literally the only catcher pretty much
Yeah.
that will steal you bases still. And I still expect him. He's 32 right now.
Mm-hmm.
I still expect him to steal 15 to 20 bases for the next couple of years at least, barring health. So that right there is very valuable, and the fact that he still hit basically 20 home runs last year.
Mm-hmm.
You're basically getting a 2020 potential guy at the
Yeah.
catcher position,
Yep.
and that's very valuable. And if you get him, you're getting somebody that nobody else in the league can replicate, and that's very valuable. And so that's why I think, in my opinion, even though the average is a little bit lower than what we would love to have,
Yeah.
I think that stolen base power potential that's still there in a great lineup keeps him as kind of our third blue chip guy.
Dude, I love it. I think you're exactly right. I wouldn't be surprised if you see that average go up, and then with that,
Yep.
the rest of the counting stuff, and maybe last year was a little bit of a blip because that's what it felt like. He was a slow starter. You had Trey Turner doing the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see, man. I'm curious to see when the stolen bases will drop off as far as with his age. He's getting up there. I mean, 32. He's a young man, and I'm sure he's going to be running next year. But I'm just something to keep an eye out on. As we transition from blue chips, we are rolling out our very first ever Steady Eddie. I mean, dude, I just love it so much. Ever set it and forget it last year. This is our first ever Steady Eddie player. We have 6 names on this list. And so let's start with number 1, William Contreras, the younger Contreras brother. We go from talking about a catcher that gets lost in a lineup of stars to a guy in William Contreras who has to basically carry the whole offensive load in Milwaukee. This guy is 25. You forget how young he is. He had a 289 average, 17 home runs, and 78 runs batted in. I mean, dude, if you get this guy, are you excited?
I am. I'll admit, the way he got started last year, that first month or two of the season, I was like, man,
Yeah.
maybe that last year in Atlanta was kind of a one hit wonder. But man, did he turn it on after the first basically month and a half or 2 months of the year? I mean, he looks legit to me, and I'll be honest, he was tempting to
Yeah.
put as my fourth blue chipper, but I like where we've got him as our top kind of steady Eddie guy. I
Yeah.
think this is a guy that has a ceiling though
Mm-hmm.
as high or higher than anybody at the position if he puts it all together.
Mm-hmm.
but I think the floor is significantly lower than those top three guys if he does have a down year. Plus, as we've said, we expect the Brewers to regress a little bit as a team.
Yeah.
So that might hurt a little bit of his counting stats overall. But having said that, if I end up getting William Contreras in my draft, I'm going to be a pretty happy guy going into the season. I think that I'll put it this way. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be shocked at all if in 2025 he's the number one or two catcher in our breakdown.
Yeah. Dude, I think, well, I don't want to say, but I do think he could have a pretty easy leap from, I mean, it's easy to say when you're the first guy at the new
Yeah.
tier, but easy leap for the blue chips. I'm with you what you said about how I mean, we almost put a blue chip to start with. I'm curious to see what this team's going to look like. I know you kind of said it. This is the guy who hit 20 home runs a year ago, so you know the pop is there. I guess 2 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. I don't know. I got a feeling. Kind of makes me nervous, but I like where we have him on our list. Our next guy, Sean Murphy, backstop predominantly, starting backstop for the Atlanta Braves. 29-year-old, a 251 average, 21 home runs, 68 RBIs. I got a little bit to say on him, so I'll let you go first. What do you like about him?
So this guy at the catcher position feels like the absolute book definition of steady Eddie.
Yeah.
Like I feel like if I draft Sean Murphy, I pretty much know exactly what I'm going to get. I know that I'm probably going to get an average that I like but don't love, but I can live with it at the catcher spot. I'm going to get solid power, especially at the catcher position.
Yeah.
And he's in a premium lineup. And so his counting stats, like his RBIs and his runs scored, is going to be very high for a catcher. Even though, Cody, I'm sure you're going to allude to this, even though he does not get quite the playing time in
Yeah.
relation to some of these other top guys we're talking about. That's really the only downside to Sean Murphy. Let me go ahead and say this. If you get Sean Murphy in your draft, I would highly recommend you also make room for Travis d'Arnaud. That way you've always got
Yeah.
the Atlanta Braves catcher no matter who's playing.
Yep.
So having said that, that's just my little tip if you get Murphy. But having said that, there's a lot to like in if you get a guy like Sean Murphy. You just know what you're going to get.
Yeah, I had him in a lot of leagues last year, and dude, he had 21 home runs. I mean, that's top 3 on this list. Just taking a quick glance.
Yep.
And the frustrating thing is, it felt like every other game he didn't start.
Mm-hmm.
And the numbers support that man. 108 games, so he's missing out on. Don't make me do quick math. 54 games.
Yep.
And I think they were saving him for the playoffs. Obviously, that's what you got to do. You know, our main man Justin Jefferson, he made it very clear a couple weeks ago. Fantasy sports isn't everything, but you know, it's something to consider, right? So it's frustrating. I mean, this is a guy with an 850 OPS last year, played super well, and when he was in the lineup, it's like, holy moly, this guy is the truth. And the deal is he would be our fourth blue chip.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt about it. But you have to put him. I actually moved him down. We have 2 different rankings lists. He's 6 on my list just because I don't know if the Braves kind of snap out of it and play him more. Then I think there's an argument to be made that he could be the most productive catcher. I mean, think about it. With 54 more games, he could hit 30 bombs. And with his
he could hit 30. Honestly, he could hit 30 home runs in just 110 games.
Yeah, I mean,
but yeah, you're right.
It's so that's a frustrating thing there. I don't think, I don't want to deter anybody, but I love what you said. Have a solid backup. Go with the Atlanta duo. I think that's a pretty fun idea. But yeah, I like what you said. Number 6 on our list here, Jonah Heim. Talk about a guy. I'll raise my hand. I didn't know who he was last year. But all he is a 28-year-old world champion for the Texas Rangers. Had a 258 average, 18 home runs, 95 RBIs. Dude, that's what I'm talking about. Even sold 2 bags. What do you like about him?
There's a lot to like about Jonah Heim. First of all, he's right in the middle of his prime. He's going to be in a stacked lineup, just like we were just talking about with Will Smith and Sean Murphy and even Real Muto. But switch hitter, great defensive catcher as well. So the Rangers are going to be very motivated to keep him in the lineup on most days. So playing time shouldn't be an issue for him.
Yeah.
And I mean, here's the thing: who's to say that the best is yet to come with a guy like this? It seemed like he put everything together last year.
Yep.
If you're a fantasy, if you're drafting a fantasy team and you get a guy like Jonah Heim, you hope that last year wasn't like the peak of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is a possibility. I think that's why he's probably in a question, or not in a question mark, but steady Eddie right now. I think you could make an argument to put him a notch or two above where he is, but really we've only seen this level of production last year. So the challenge for a guy like Jonah Heim is, can you do it again?
Yeah.
And if the answer is yes, you're getting a steal if he's the 5th or 6th catcher off the board in your draft. So
yeah,
I love where he's at in our rankings, but I think that there's room for improvement. There's obviously room to regress as well. Well, obviously we'll see what happens, but I like Jonah Heim a lot. If I end up getting him in a draft, I'm very, very pleased with my catcher position. That's for sure.
Yep. Hey, from one new guy to another, let's talk about number 7 on our list. Gabriel Moreno, dude. Playoff standout, looked really good. Had a really solid rookie year, 284 average, 7 home runs, 50 RBIs for the D-backs. I know you love this guy, dude. Tell me about him.
Man, I like this guy a lot. Cody and I were just talking about him a little bit before we recorded, and I'll admit, if I didn't see Gabby Moreno in the playoffs do what he did for Arizona and kind of that magical run to the World Series, I mean, I think he would have probably been at least 5 or 6 spots lower on this list.
Yeah.
But I was so impressed with what I saw him do in the postseason in moments where the D-backs needed him to produce the most, and he came through.
Mm-hmm.
I was just so impressed with him, and so that's why he's here on my list. At number, what are we at? 7.
7, yes, sir.
So let's keep in mind he's 23 years old.
Yep.
So the best should be yet to come with a guy like this.
Yep.
The defense is already there. He's incredible defensively. And what he showed last year, even in the regular season, he showed that he could at least hit for average.
Mm-hmm.
The question with Gabby Moreno, and really the only question, is the power going to develop?
Yeah.
If the power develops with this guy, and I'm not talking about hitting 30 home runs, I'm talking about, can you get to 20 or more? Yeah. This guy instantly vault into blue chip immediately if the power comes. But I think no matter what here, I think if you end up getting a guy like Gabby Moreno, number one, you're going to get a guy that's going to play pretty much every day. And number two, you know that the average is going to at least be somewhere that it's not going to hurt you.
Yeah.
And so at the catcher position, as much as we want it to become deeper, and it has over the years, it's still not that deep. So a guy like Gabriel Moreno with room to develop and grow, I think is at a good spot here around 7 or 8 in our rankings.
Yep. I love it, man. I'm curious to see how high he goes, because I think it's been enough time. It's been a month, actually, since the World Series ended. 117 days till opening days, but who's counting? I mean, I'm definitely not. I definitely am. Here's the deal. He is, I think he could go higher than we're even saying, just because of what he did. And that's kind of the playoff magic effect, that you're going to see the same thing with like a Royce Lewis on the shortstop side of things, because he just came into his own. So I'm with you, man. It's going to be very exciting. I feel like he has a little bit of MJ Melendez in him. Like, he's young and he's got a ton of upside, but he could fall down. We haven't even talked about MJ yet, but
the floor is way higher though with Gabby Moreno. The floor is so low with Melendez.
Yeah, defensively he's a lot better too. So that's something to always think about. The defense is there for a catcher, especially. He's gonna get playing time.
Yep.
So Yeah, I guess unless you're Sean Murphy, I'm going to get back on my Sean Murphy soapbox, so I better move on. Hey, let's talk about
Yeah.
number 8. A couple more steady eddies here, bud. Salvador Perez, a former blue chip lure, I guess. I mean, if we had been doing this show 5 years ago, it would have been Salvi Perez, Salvi Perez, Salvi
Yes.
Perez. He'd been the only answer.
Him
He
and
had a
Buster Posey.
Oh, geez, Buster Posey, man. He left us too soon. He is a Hall of Famer. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. 33 years old. Salvi Perez is. He might be a Hall of Famer, too.
Yeah.
255 average, 23 home runs, 80 RBIs in the vaunted Kansas City Royals lineup. I mean, I didn't even realize they scored 80 runs last year, so that's exciting.
Yeah.
What do you like if you get Salvador Perez?
I mean, what you like is a guy that again is pretty much in that lineup every day. That they actually DH him a lot because he's 33 now, and so you don't want to put too much wear and tear on the knees. But what you're getting with Sal Perez is a guy who could easily lead the position in home runs, like he has many times in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's right then and there. That's value. The question with Sal Perez is, obviously number one, we need some guys to produce around him in that Royals lineup in order to help some counting stat stuff. But with Sal Perez, can you stay healthy? It seems like he's a guy that I wouldn't necessarily call him injury prone. It just feels like he gets beat up a lot and has over the years at the catcher position. And it seems like every year he gets like a thumb or, some sort of a nagging injury just from playing that position and for doing it so long. That he ends up missing a few games, which obviously hurts you. So if he can stay reasonably healthy, he's honestly too low on our list.
Yeah.
But because of the fact that he's hitting in the Kansas City lineup, has a little bit of age/injury concern, that's the only reason why he's this low on our list. But if you get him around 7, 8, 9 at the position, I mean, you're getting a guy with steal at his age that could be a steal.
Dude, that's exactly. I was just about to say he's got sleeper written all over him. I mean, we're not that many years removed from like a 48 home run year, and I'm not saying he's gonna even sniff that again.
Yeah,
but he's got pop, and I love him, man. I love him as a player. Last steady Eddie, and then we're gonna have to start grouping these guys. Will, let's talk about him, buddy. Willson Contreras, 31-year-old backstop for the Cardinals, had a very turbulent start to his Redbird career. But let's talk about the stats, shall we? 264 average, 20 home runs, 67 RBI, scored 55 runs, even stole 6 bags. That's pretty exciting. You're getting his older brother, but what do you like about Willson?
Yeah, so with Willson, he's tough because sometimes he'll go through stretches where he looks like one of the top catchers in the league.
Yeah.
And then he'll go through other stretches to where it's like he can't sniff anything at the plate. And so, he's the ultimate kind of hot or cold guy at this position. If you end up getting a guy like him, you just honestly have to ride it out. I would suggest getting a backup if you get a guy like him, just to kind of curb some of the cold spells that he's going to go through. You know what? But if you get him around 9th or 10th at this position, I mean, you're getting a guy that's got a lot of potential. And he's proven it over the years that he's a solid player. So yeah, I mean, he's not my favorite at the position, obviously, but if you're getting him around this stage at the position, you're probably fairly happy getting him in the middle to late rounds for your catcher.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you, dude. Just peel away the names for a second. Just look at those stats. If you're telling me you can give me 20 and 70, 20 home runs, 70 RBIs from my catcher, I mean, we've talked about this before. This is not first base or an outfield position.
Right.
This is just like trying to make the best out of some crappy lemons. Let's make some subpar lemonade, but we can add some sugar from like the util spot. Now I want to go with this lemonade analogy. So we'll get some strawberries, from the middle infield spot. Yeah, dude, this is the best thing we've done. No, I like him, and I think he's a guy. If you want to spend your draft capital somewhere else, and you have this guy to fall back on. I mean, listen, we're talking about number 9. All right. What's the standard league size, Will? It's 12. So depending on, this guy could just be hanging out. You could just take him and run and
Right.
enjoy your year. But I'm with you. I like having the backup. And one of your backups could be some of these next gentlemen, because the next 9 guys are question marks. Of course, I talked about at the beginning of the show. These are the guys that we're like, these guys could be pretty solid. But there is reason for pause. Pause. I just thought about like dog paws. Yeah, nice. What up? Okay. Claire sent me a picture of Scout in a Santa hat, our golden retriever, and said it's Santa paws. And so that's what just popped in my mind when I said paws.
What a great transition.
Dude, snapping back in. Let's go. Question marks. Will's got a question mark. Why am I doing this with this guy? Is there anybody else out there who can host a podcast? Let's talk about 3 names, and I want to know your favorite of them. 10 through 12 on our list here, bud. Francisco Alvarez, the 22-year-old, hopefully soon to be stud for the New York Mets, a 209 batting average, 25 homers, and 63 RBIs. Cal Raleigh, the big dumper. Don't think I forgot. Listen, number 11, still doing his thing. He's only 26. That can't be right. I picture him at like 32. Good for us, man. He's going to be a staple in the question marks for many years to come. 30 home runs. That's the big thing with him. And then my guy that I'm going to talk about, Yanier Diaz, 25-year-old guy for Houston. It's going to be given the reins. What do you like about those 3?
Power. That's your 3 power guys that if you miss out on the first 8 or so guys and you're really targeting power for your team, that's kind of what you're building your team around. You want one of these 3 guys. And you're going to be able to get them. We've already rattled off 9 guys. Yeah. These are 10, 11, and 12, at least in our rankings. And so it's not like you got to spend a premium pick on them. I know you're going to talk about Yanier Diaz a lot, but I really like what I've seen out of Alvarez in his first year with the Mets. I think there's tons of potential there. And then Cal Raleigh, it seems like he keeps getting better. And if he can just get the average up just a little bit more, from 235-ish to close to 250, dude, be a steal.
Seriously, yeah.
And so I like if you're going power strategy, target these 3 guys in the middle to late rounds, and I think you'll be happy with the result.
Yep. Hey, I love everything you said. It is going to be interesting to see if any of these guys go higher than we think they will. Like you said, I'm going to talk about Diaz, not because I'm the resident Houston fan, but because I think the fact that, Maldonado is gone in Houston, and they've come out and said, GM already came out and said, hey, this guy is going to be our starting catcher next year. Defensively, I think that probably makes some people a little nervous, but there are no question marks about this guy's pop, man. He hits the ball hard. He slugged .503 as I scroll frantically to find the number, Will. How about .538, dude, for an .846 OPS? This dude hit in 104 games, 23 home runs. We talked about Sean Murphy. That's more pop than Sean Murphy.
Yep.
This guy will wind up being my catcher in a lot of leagues. If you can tell me he's going to play 130 games in that Astros lineup. I don't know. A lot to be excited about. A reverse splits guy, which is interesting. Hits better against right-handers than left. But hey, we'll see what happens. That's it. He didn't even play against lefties. He had 2 plate appearances in 2022.
That's crazy.
In 2023 he had a few more, but the average 214 against lefties. So interesting. Reason, here's why he's a question mark. Big issues with the eye. The walk rate's just not there. 2.9%. That's good for 1 percentile. That's bottom of the league. That's not going to get the job done. But he doesn't strike out that much. He's hovering right around 20s at 19.6, which if you've been keeping up with this show for a while, 2021 is league average. So for a young guy, 25, let's see what he does. This could be my big miss when we do our show next offseason. But out of all the catchers, I got a star by his name. He gets me the most excited of these question marks. Moving on. 13 through 15 here. Travis d'Arnaud. I'm a little angry at him. Keibert Ruiz for the Washington Nationals. I'm excited I nailed his name. And then Elias Diaz, all-star for the Colorado Rockies. What do you like?
Yeah, so these are the guys that the way I see it is if you get a guy, if you, I don't love having to get two catchers, especially if you got limited bench spots. But
Yeah.
if you don't feel great about maybe your number one, I would love to have these guys as maybe my backup plan B type option.
Mm-hmm.
And if you so happen to just miss out on the top 12 or so, like it's not the worst thing in the world to get one of these three guys, but
Yeah.
um, as far as the names here, I do like Keibert Ruiz. I was kind of surprised looking at his stats that he ended up with 18 home runs,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like there's potential there to continue to get better. He's a switch hitter. If you
Yeah.
remember, he was the big prize in the Hall that the Nationals got a couple of years back. Um, I I get the feeling that Keibert Ruiz at some point, I don't know if it's going to be this year or maybe a year or two down the road, is going to break out at
Yeah.
some point. So he's a guy that I would have maybe starred. Finishing up those names, just anybody who plays for the Colorado Rockies, you got to at least have them on your radar. So
Yeah.
Elias Diaz was an all-star last year, and so worst case scenario, at least
Mm-hmm.
you're getting a guy who plays half of his games at Coors Field. So keep that in mind with a guy like that.
Yeah. Nope. You're 100% correct. I like everything you said. I have d'Arnaud down a little bit than what you're talking about, just because I don't know how the Braves are going to play his playing time. So
Yeah.
I pause on picking him. I think I have him 19 on my list. But listen, his numbers, uh, well, they're rough last year, but the year before, really
Mm-hmm.
solid. Had quite a bit of pop, and he can play ball. Or else he wouldn't be on the Braves. I love everything you said about Ruiz and Diaz. So we'll move on to our final three question marks. Boy, this next guy. I mean, I feel like I invested in something and then it was ripped away from me.
Enron.
Yeah, dude. I guess it's just like, what in the world? Alejandro Kirk. He's a big question mark for me. And then you got Tyler Stevenson and Mitch Garver, the man who, I mean, he was locked in October and obviously helped bring that World Series to Texas. Of those three, what do you like?
So I think Mitch Garver might be the most underrated catcher, especially fantasy wise, in the whole position.
Yeah,
I think he's gonna go. He's gonna be a guy that goes undrafted in quite a bit of leagues out there, especially in some shallower leagues, and he shouldn't. I'll just say that. I'll just say that it. The main question with Mitch Garver is, can he stay healthy?
yeah,
And if he does stay healthy, he's going to be very productive, and he's basically going to be the primary DH probably for the Rangers
yeah,
if he does. And so keep him in mind as kind of a late round sleeper, especially if you're just going to rely on who's left at this position, and that's going to be your strategy. But as far as the other guys, man, Kirk and Stevenson, those were probably two of the most disappointing guys from a
yeah,
year ago because I thought Tyler Stevenson was going to be one of the steals of the draft with where he was going, hitting in Great American Ballpark on that Reds team. And
yeah.
he just did not have a good year. And
Mm-hmm.
same thing with Kirk. Like I wasn't necessarily shocked that the power didn't materialize, but the average and for a lot of the year just wasn't there.
Yeah. I
And
thought he'd
so
broken out after 22. I really did.
yes, like and so those guys are now all of a sudden just kind of a mystery, and that's why they're in our question mark. We really don't know what to think going into 2024 about those two guys.
Yeah. Hey, couple things real quick. Mitch Garver, I did not have this on my radar. Free agent, so that could be good. We could
Yeah.
definitely get. That was a big thing with him, was he was util for in a lot of leagues. Yahoo will give you position eligibility if you walk past the base. It's crazy. I think if you like when you're jogging out to outfield, they're like, did he step on second? He's got second base eligibility. But there are other like fan tracks. That's what I typically play on outside of Yahoo. He was util all year until like the very end. He got some catcher eligibility, so that was kind of an issue. But hey, he could sign with the team and be their catcher, and his numbers were really good. Mitch Garver, 270 average, 19 home runs, 50 RBIs. Obviously, that number would go up if he played a little bit more. He was hurt to start the year. And then my big thing, Alejandro Kirk. Here's the deal. When Brandon Belt came in, he was their primary DH. Kirk would split time in 22 as DH and catcher. So last year in 23, when Belt came in, he would just ride the bench. I am curious to see with Belt gone, will he play more? And will he kind of, because it felt like he could never get back into the swing of things in 2023. He's still a young guy. He's only 25. That number blows me away a little bit. But
The
dude,
Blue Jays, it feels like the Blue Jays really need to get him back to
yeah,
what he was in 2022 because we've talked a lot about how disappointing the Blue Jays, especially that lineup was,
yeah,
and the fact that Alejandro Kirk regressed quite a bit last year, I think really hurt them. Obviously, all the media talks about Vlad Jr., Bo Bichette, all the superstars, but guys like Alejandro Kirk taking that step back feels like it really hurt that lineup.
yep. I'm with you, man. And like I said, I wonder if he gets more regular playing time.
Yep.
If he'll bounce back, and maybe we'll see a return to the steady Eddies.
I like it.
Oh, I love it so much, dude. Okay, hey, we're moving on. We're at lottery tickets now. It's very exciting. We have 6 names. I'm going to ask you real quick, Will. You want to just rip off 6 and we talk?
Yeah,
You know
let's
what we
do
like?
it.
Let's do it, baby. Here we go. Number 19 on our list, MJ Melendez. 20, Logan O'Hoppe. 21, Shea Langoliers for your Las Vegas, whatever they're going to call themselves. Maybe they'll stay the A's. I don't know. 22, Danny Jansen. Very curious. We have 2 Toronto catchers on here behind the prospect that they, traded away in Gabriel Moreno.
Right.
And then 23 and 24, some interesting lotto tickets here. Blake Sable for the San Francisco Giants. And I got to put my Red Sox on here. I told Will when we got on, I got my Red Sox gear on. For YouTube audio, it's only because of the big free agent week. We signed absolutely nobody. Of these lotto tickets, who gets you excited?
I would say so. I'll say this: I would be willing to bet that at least one of these guys is a huge riser going into 2025. I just don't know which one it will be. But I'm gonna say I really like in limited action last year. I really liked what I saw out of Logan O'Hoppe for the Angels.
Yeah.
I have a bad feeling that the lineup is going to be terrible, and so that's going to hurt a lot of potential for counting stats. But I like what I saw, kind of in his first full season when he was healthy. And then MJ Melendez still intrigues me. And last year was a really rough year for him. But here's the thing. I don't really see that many alternatives in the Kansas City lineup right now. And so I feel like he's going to get a ton of playing time. The power potential, at least, is there. And can he put it together? The potential is off the charts, but I've always said potential is such a dangerous word. And it's a trap sometimes. But those are really the 2 guys out of the list that really I would be keeping my eye on for me.
Yeah. I like it, dude. Good calls there. I don't think it's going to be a big surprise who I'm going to because one of my guys is Connor Wong. And I hate to say it, he's a big piece. He's the only prospect that's still on the team outside of Rodrigo from the Mookie deal. But he's number 24 on our list. He 235 average, 9 home runs, 36 RBIs, 55 runs scored, stole 8 bases. Listen, this dude he's going to get the reins. He'll be the starter next year. Reese McGuire, fantastic. You're great defensively. You can't hit a beach ball. I'm saying this he's 27, Connor Wong. It's time to find out what you are.
Yeah.
So for fantasy, if you got a late round pick, I'd probably use it somewhere else, but if you want to throw it at a catcher, Connor Wong, go for it. I just won't be surprised, okay? And then obviously, Shea Langoliers.
The power's there.
The power's there. That's what can get you excited.
Yeah.
And I don't know why you'd watch an Oakland A's game unless they're playing your team, but I'm going to keep an eye on them because if the average can come up a little bit, I think maybe the home runs will continue to rise. He'll come into his own. I mean, he's 26, so it's time to see what he is. And but then the last guy I want to mention, I don't really want to talk about Danny Jansen. No disrespect to the Blue Jays, but meh. You
He's
know,
just in a major timeshare, and that just always is a bummer.
dude, it's bad for fantasy baseball. It is awful. Uh, Blake Sable, though, this guy, 25,
I like
defensive
that guy.
defensive wizard. The statistics: a 235 average, 13 home runs, 44 RBIs. There's the big question mark. What can he turn into? Is he going to be anything outside of a defensive specialist? But dude, I'm telling you guys, watch San Francisco for
Yep.
this guy's just defensive. His pop time, I'm pretty sure it was like top 3 in the league. It was awesome. So,
Yep.
yeah. Anyway, that's our list, man. That's our list. Dude, let's talk about the strategy and the outlook. And you had mentioned, hey, are we going to do this? And I said, dude, I haven't thought 2 seconds about it in the holistic form of like where this happens in the draft. So I kind of want to bend your ear about it. You're drafting a catcher. When, where, and why?
I tell you what, there's just enough depth here
Mm-hmm.
to where you honestly, I don't think you have to go after one of the blue chippers. I really don't. I think that the key to this position, though, especially if you're in a deep league, like let's say you're in a 12 or 14 team league, I think it's going to be really important if you're in a really deep league to really keep an eye out to see if anyone doubles up on a catcher earlier than you think, because that's what's going to accelerate the drop off, if that makes sense. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to get caught off guard in a deep league and be stuck with a guy who you just don't feel good about at the position. So if you're in a shallower league, I think that if you wait and get a guy like Sal Perez or a guy like Yonder Diaz, like what you were talking about, I mean, I think you could be ecstatic waiting and hitting on a guy in the later rounds. Having said all that, if you do get a guy like Adley Rutschman, Will Smith, JT Realmuto, even William Contreras, you could be getting a difference maker that nobody else is going to get.
Yeah.
And so I don't hate any of the strategies, but if one of those blue chippers falls further than I expect them to, I'm probably going to pounce on them just because I feel like I'm getting more of a sure thing at a position to where there's not many sure things. There's a lot of guys that have good potential.
Yep.
But there's very few sure things. And so I think a lot of it depends on how far those top guys fall, or how aggressive do you want to be getting one of those top 3 or 4 guys.
Yep. How comfortable do you feel riding the waiver wire trying to figure out who's going to pop off? Who's going to be the 2022 Alejandro Kirk? Who's going to be 2023 Jonah Heim?
But if those don't ever materialize, you talk about frustrating and feeling like you're just in catcher purgatory.
Yeah.
That is frustrating because you feel like everybody in your league has a leg up on you at that particular position, and they honestly do if you're in that spot.
Yep. I'm with you, man. I think I don't know. I had one share of JT Realmuto last year, and it's just because, like, in the draft, it made it to like the 8th round. I was like, holy crap, no one's taking a catcher. So I kind of fall into what you said. I don't see drafting one of these guys in like the first 5 rounds. I think there's just talent everywhere else. It's why I'm excited to dive into first base and outfield and third base, shortstop, all that fun stuff. I would say this is one of those positions where like the catcher best is levels below the first baseman best or the third baseman best. So there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of potential for, I don't know, what we saw from Melendez and Kirk. So that's what makes fantasy baseball a lot of fun. Real quick, talking about, risers and fallers. Let's hit it, man. A couple guys here that rose in our ranks, just looking from last year to this year. It's going to be fun to be able to do this year over year. Let's see. I almost said Alejandro Rutschman. That's not a thing. If he got smaller and a little bit more around. Adley Rutschman, he went from 4 to 1, which is just a pretty cool thing. I'm pretty sure he was blue chip. I have last year's pulled up. Let me check here.
I think I made the executive decision to go ahead and put him blue chip just based on my love for him.
Dude, what a call. What a call. Now he's number one. I love it. Francisco Alvarez, man, he went from 21 to 10. That's going from
He was a lotto ticket.
Yeah, lotto ticket to just a fringe steady Eddie guy. He's close. He's just like we could have put Contreras in the blue chips. We could have put Alvarez in the steady Eddies. I think he's going to do something spectacular for the Mets.
Mm-hmm.
And then you made a great call. And maybe it's a little, premature because he hasn't done it for a full year. But I like Yanier Diaz from not ranked. We didn't even have him on the list. And this guy is, I'm telling you guys, mark it down December 1st. What time is it, Will? I'm not wearing my watch.
8:22.
Here we go, dude. I'm telling you. Yanier Diaz is going to be a freaking stud this year.
Yeah.
Look out. That's my hot take, man. For the fallers, we've talked about them. It's Kirk and it's Melendez. But, some stuff that falls, Will, and you can back me up on this, they bounce. Okay.
They do.
And so maybe they bounce back up. Basketballs do that. Toddlers do that. You guys ever seen a toddler fall over?
Yes.
Oh, Will's know what I'm talking about. I was like,
yes.
Yep, it totally happens. They bounce right back up. It's awesome. Everybody goes boom, and we start clapping. It's a good time. I'm excited, dude. How are you feeling?
Man, I like I said at the top of the show, man, I feel like a kid that Christmas has come early, man. I love these breakdowns. I love getting back into fantasy talk. I feel good about our rankings. I really do. I think the tiers, at least based on what we've seen over the past year or couple of years of production, I feel good about where we're at on our tiers. I'm with you on Yanier Diaz. I wanted to kind of give you the stage because I know you like him a lot and really follow the Astros closely, but I'm with you 100% on him. But yeah, man, catcher's exciting. Like, it used to be a complete wasteland a couple of years ago. I mean, it was literally, I kid you not, if you didn't get Buster Posey or you didn't get Sal Perez or maybe one or two other guys, dude, you were scrambling all year to find somebody that just wouldn't kill you. And now we're at the position, though, to where I think there's enough depth there to where at least everybody can at least feel reasonably okay, even in deeper leagues, about what they have there. But as I said earlier, there's very few sure things there still. And I think we'll see how it plays out. I'm interested to see in 2024 if we get a few more sure things added to our list in the future.
It's exciting, man. Hey, drafts are starting up, guys. So you want to stay tuned in because we're going to try and really help you guys out. We appreciate you if you're listening to us. Reach out to us on Twitter at BTH_Cody and at Will Sism. Any questions, any thoughts on our list? We'd love to hear them. Check us out on YouTube. It's just Bringing the Heat. It's essentially what you're listening to, but you see our face. You know, leave us a comment. Tell us what you think. We really appreciate and love you guys. But until next time, thanks for listening to episode 59 of Bringing the Heat.